Hi everyone, I'm Christy Forsyth with Clarity by Christy. I am a soul therapist and an intuitive that connects with the angelic energy. This is my weekly reading where we tune into everything that you need to know about this week's energy with messages from the angels, with a tarot reading included in it. I am doing this reading a day early because tomorrow here in the US is the 4th of July and I am taking the day off. So I'm in here a day early to do the weekly reading for us. So these energies were already in them, but they are going to apply from Tuesday until the following Monday. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what that date is, but so starting on Tuesday, July 4th. So such powerful messages that are coming through as we are now in July, as we are now in Cancer season. Just a powerful but emotional time, and I really struggled to narrow it down to just one title, and had to keep asking, okay, angels, show me, what do you want me to call this? What do you want me to call this? And it finally got narrowed down to simply calling it the invitation, because that is exactly what this energy is. This week, this month, here in this time period is an invitation. It's an invitation within the intensity of this energy, within the emotion of this energy, to feel it and heal it, essentially. And so we will find that we will be receiving invitations to do that. It's also an invitation in this time period to put the ego on a timeout. So you're going to find opportunities for that as well. And so I feel really called to say, to look for those invitations this week. What am I being invited into? You might physically be invited into things that feel really important. You might energetically be invited into things. You might be invited into opportunities to heal, to learn, to release lessons that you've been working on for quite some time. I really feel like there's a lot of powerful energy that's happening. I was talking last week about how this is such a spiritual energy if we are allowing it. Now, if we are really focused on the day-to-day stuff, if we are really focused on the day-to-day bullshit, that we can find ourselves get caught up in, I don't think that we're going to be making the most of this energy that we have going on right now, because it's such a spiritual energy, and it's so important that we're looking beyond what's happening on the surface, that we're looking beyond what's showing up, and instead of getting caught up in, oh my gosh, I hate that this happened, or this is really difficult, or even just like getting lost in the shuffle of day to day and letting every single day pass by without taking the pause and taking a look at what happened for my spirit today. I think that that's going to be really, really important. So I think if we're caught up in all of that stuff, we're going to be missing out on these opportunities. We're really called, there is an invitation here for us to honor our spirit, to honor our spiritual journey, to take a look at what's happening now and to identify, what is this teaching me? How is this growing me? What is this developing within me? What am I working on healing? What do I need to feel right now in order to work on and to develop myself, my soul, the best version of myself? And so even as you notice these frustrations that are showing up for you, can we, instead of getting so caught up in the emotion of the frustration, take a step back and take a look at that from a spiritual perspective? Why is this showing up for me? I think that we're going to have a lot of things this week where it's like, why do I have to keep learning this lesson again and again and again? Or why does this keep happening to me, right? And I think that that's a question that we need to ask. Why does this keep showing up? Why does this keep happening to me? And keeping in mind that it's happening for us. And I know that that can be really frustrating and really annoying, right? But it's the truth. It's an opportunity for us to grow ourselves. So if something is showing up again and again and again, it's because there's a spiritual lesson in it. There's an opportunity for growth. There's an opportunity to handle that in a different way, right? It might be simply the opportunity to hand it up, to surrender it, to say, you know, God, I've been trying to figure this out all on my own, and I recognize that I don't know shit, right? And I recognize that I now need to hand this up to you. I now need to surrender this to you to help me to see the vision, to help me to see my way through it, because I'm having a difficult time seeing that. I'm having a difficult time understanding what's happening for me or why this is happening for me. And as we start to surrender, as we start to ask more questions, the answers will come. I think that it's going to be so important for us to take that time to connect with Source, with God, with the universe, and our spiritual selves. I was talking a lot about that last week. So if you didn't watch last week's video, you also are going to want to watch that, because there's a lot of messages about how we do that, and a lot of important messages that I think are really so much applying here this week. There's very much this coming home to ourselves, right? But not to ourselves like our ego, to ourselves, or coming home to our soul, who we really are, our authenticity, and reconnecting with that. That's going to be so key. And can we notice it? Can we pay attention to it? Can we let these emotions, because you definitely will notice probably feeling a heightened emotion right now. You probably already are, right? Or if not already, you might notice that that's being stirred up, and notice where you're feeling emotional. What's stirring up this emotion? Because I think that this is really showing us where we need to make changes, or what it is that we need to heal, or our emotions are teaching us so much about ourselves right now. And this is really, really key. So those emotions become a tool in order for us to heal something. It's an opportunity. It's an invitation to feel it or heal it. It's also an invitation to put our ego on a timeout. Okay, because I think that ego, once emotion starts to get stirred up a lot, the ego starts to get stirred up, right? Because our ego becomes very protective, and our ego wants to throw some temper tantrums. The image that I got when I was connecting with the messages for today was an image from when I used to work back in a grocery store. And parents would take their children through the grocery aisle. And at the time, there was just so much candy in the grocery aisle, right? And it's like right at child level where they could see it. And they would ask the parents for the candy. And there would be a lot of times situations where the parents would say, no, you can't have the candy, right? I don't want you to have the candy. And the child would throw a full-on temper tantrum. We've probably all witnessed this, or maybe we've been that child, or it has been our own child, right? And so I want you to think about your ego this week like that child, and think about the ways that maybe your ego is throwing a temper tantrum. Notice again where you're feeling emotional, where you feel like you're throwing a little bit of a temper tantrum. And I'm not saying that we don't have the right or the ability to feel what we need to feel, because I think that we do need to feel our feelings and allow ourselves to work through that. But if we stop at the feeling and we don't take it to that spiritual level where we're truly exploring, what does this mean to me, or where do I need to make adjustments, or what can I learn from this, then I think that we are really robbing ourselves from a spiritual experience that's meant to be happening. And also we are robbing ourselves from that opportunity to put that ego in check, right? So where is that ego throwing a temper tantrum? Where is it driving the car, right? Where are we giving into that? Because so often my experience with that grocery store analogy was that the parents would give in to that, right? The louder the child would scream, eventually, and I get it, the parent would give in to that, and that would just support that, right? If we look at behavioral modification, that would support that, and that child would scream louder and longer the next time if the parent didn't give in to that. And so we want to treat that ego in the same way, where we don't want to reinforce that behavior. We want to acknowledge it. I see that. And we might have to go through some discomfort or a lot of discomfort as it's screaming at us, as it's temper tantruming. I want this, I want this, I want this, right? We might have to ignore that and or acknowledge it, but not give it too much attention. Eventually, the discomfort will settle. Eventually, the child will stop crying, or you're moving out of the grocery store. So you get the idea, but we don't want to be giving the ego the candy bar, right? We don't want to be feeding that, because then we have a bigger problem the next time around. So just something to think about and exploring. Am I making this decision from my soul, or am I making this decision from my ego? Is this emotion stirring up my ego, or, am I using it as an opportunity to understand myself on a deeper level? We don't always have to react from a place of emotion. We all will have that emotion, but we don't always have to react from that place of emotion. And so taking a look at that, and instead maybe asking, how might I use this to grow? How might I use this to let me level up with the lesson that I am learning? So notice where that ego is tantruming this week. This is the invitation, right? But there's also an invitation to just let yourself feel it, and then take some time to figure out what it is that you feel called to do with it, what it is that you need to do with it. This is not a great time to just knee-jerk reaction, respond to something, right? Take a little time, feel it out, and process it. The card that I pulled is the grief card, right? So you might notice that grief is coming up, but I think more importantly, the more important message is what this grief card says. It says, tears are what happens when the ice in the heart melts, okay? So I feel like there's an invitation to defrost. I feel like there's an invitation to be open. I always see Cancer season as this beautiful opportunity, number one, to come home to ourselves and to really get to know ourselves on a deep level, but also there's an invitation to open our hearts, right? And as we open our hearts, we will feel things more deeply, but I think that that's a really beautiful thing. Vulnerability is connection, right? And a huge purpose that each and every one of us came here to earth with is to connect, is to feel, is to be vulnerable with one another. So there's an invitation to be vulnerable, to let the heart melt, and that might come through tears. I'm going to read it to you one more time because it feels that important. Tears are what happens when what happened when the ice in the heart melts. So letting that ice in our heart melt, and that might come through tears, that might come through feeling our feels that we've been setting aside for a while. Cancer season usually makes it more difficult for us to set the feelings aside, and it puts those in our face. Let's take a look at the other cards that we pulled. So we pulled the Star card, right? The Star card is about healing, is an opportunity to heal, to reconnect with our light on a deeper level. And again, it feels like an invitation to feel it and heal it. So honoring that, allowing what wants to come through, but then also making these decisions from our soul to do better, do differently, to handle things differently. I think that there are going to be a lot of things coming up where we have an opportunity to repeat patterns or to fall back into old things that we know no longer serve us. And we see that showing up here with the Six of Cups, right? This can be a nostalgia. This can be connecting with people or circumstances from the past. And sometimes that's a really beautiful thing, right? We might be reconnecting with people who really matter to us, who bring really beautiful things into our life. We might be spending more time with family, with friends, with the people that really matter to us, with our children. There's this energy, but we also are now in that Venus retrograde pre-shadow, and so there might be memories from the past coming back up. There might be people from the past starting to come back up, and notice what's coming up, because again, there's this opportunity for healing that comes with that. So we want to honor that, while at the same time not letting that ego pull us back into old ways, right? If something wasn't good for you at one time, it's probably not good for you now. So don't get caught up in those lies that we can tend to tell ourselves. I know I've been there where I've told myself, oh, this will be okay. This will be different this time. No, it won't. No, it won't. And if you've made that decision already in the past, you know that now in the future. So not falling back into that, but instead using it as an opportunity to fully and completely heal something that is coming up. Or maybe it is a connection that now does feel healed. Maybe both parties or all parties involved are truly healed. And I think that there's a difference, right? If we feel that at a soul level, we know that, versus our ego saying, no, this is better, this is all better, and we're ignoring what our intuition is trying to tell us. So that's a very different energy. One comes from an energy of love, one comes from that soul-based energy, and one comes from an energy of fear or settling or, being dishonest with ourselves. And speaking of that, we have the Seven of Swords. This can be that dishonesty with ourselves. But within this particular deck, this is also about walking away from a pattern that we have found ourselves caught up in for a very long time, right? I don't know how well you can see the image on the card, but I always see like these horses or these unicorns on this merry-go-round, and they're going round and round and round. And then there's these horses that are, or I think they're unicorns. Yeah, they're unicorns in the background that are walking away, right? They aren't going to repeat the same thing again and again and again, even though this kind of seems shinier and brighter, right? But they're willing to walk away from that because it might seem shiny and bright, but it's the same thing again and again. It's Groundhog Day. It's the same pattern, the same cycle repeating. And so it's saying, I choose to get off the ride, and I choose to lean into this adventure that is life, and to experience different things, to break free from maybe the cycles that I've created for myself. There's a breaking free. There's an invitation to break free this week. Justice card, right? The invitation to break free. Something coming back into balance, or us choosing justice for ourselves. Where have we been settling? Where have we been making excuses for things that we now recognize we shouldn't be making excuses for anymore? When you connect with your spirit, it will show you, right? And sometimes justice isn't served from outside of ourselves. Sometimes we choose to serve justice to ourselves. And by the way, that doesn't mean that we seek vengeance, right? Justice and vengeance are two very different things. And I think sometimes the most powerful way to serve justice for ourselves is to simply choose to disconnect from something that we know doesn't serve us anymore, to unhook ourselves from the energy that we felt tied to for maybe a very long time, and we need to get back into Three of Cups in reverse, more fun, being more lighthearted, stop taking ourselves too seriously, stop taking life too seriously. You guys saw, a lot of you guys saw the bathtub video, right? And that from a few weeks ago that I did with Chris and Davey. And that was like so silly, right? And really had absolutely nothing to do with the event that we were putting on, that was meant to be fun and lighthearted, but also very spiritual and very serious. And we did that because we don't want to take ourselves too seriously, because we don't want to take this life too seriously, because my gosh, can we create more heaven on earth through simply being a little bit more lighthearted, by having more fun? And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I have noticed that the absolute best things in my life always manifest when I'm simply focused on having fun, when I'm just enjoying life. So can we enjoy life a little bit more? And can we use that as a balance for all of the emotion that we're feeling? When we open our hearts and when we're feeling more emotional, yes, we feel more of the challenging emotions, but we also feel way more of the positive emotions too. Can we soak up all of the excitement, all of the joy? I met my baby nephew, my very first niece or nephew this past weekend, and it was so powerful and so beautiful, and just my heart felt like it was absolutely bursting with joy, and I just let myself feel all of it, all of the beauty of that, right? And I think that when we're open-hearted, we get to feel all of that, and it stops feeling so robotic, and we get to feel the happiness and the joy and the light that is available here on earth. Yes, it can be hard, but it can be so magical too. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities for magic here this week. And speaking of that, we have this Knight of Cups, right? And this to me is about that invitation. However you're feeling invited. So I want you to pay attention. How am I being invited, right? Maybe it's an invitation to connect with someone in a deeper way. Maybe it's an invitation to start a new relationship, right? Those are, or to take a relationship to the next level. Those are some of the more traditional meanings connected with this card, but it feels like an invitation in so many different ways for so many different people this week. So the invitation to follow our heart, or to listen to our heart, or to tune into our heart, or to love ourselves a little bit more deeply. Maybe the invitation is to go deeper, to feel deeper, to connect on a deeper level with ourselves, to get to know ourselves a little bit better. That is what I mean when I say coming home to ourselves, right? Listening, tuning in, paying attention, because there's so much that we think that we know about ourselves, but I don't know about you guys, but I'm constantly learning about myself and who I am now, and the person I am now is different than the person I was even a week ago, and we're constantly evolving and changing and shifting and hopefully growing. And so can we continually tune in and listen to that? There is an invitation for that this week. Maybe it's an invitation to attend a social event that you feel really drawn to or called to. Maybe you don't feel drawn to it, but you feel like, maybe you feel drawn to it, but it feels uncomfortable. And I think that there's an opening here. So I think that we need to lean into it. I don't think that just because something feels uncomfortable that we should move away from it. In fact, maybe we can lean into that a little bit, because I oftentimes think that if we can lean into the discomfort, that there are opportunities to grow there with that. Can we approach this all with that curiosity that I was talking about last week? I think that if we let ourselves be curious about ourselves, about what's showing up in our experience, there's an invitation to learn a lot this week. Okay, guys, those are your messages for this week. I hope that they resonate with you. If they do, please feel free to share this video. I invite you to like this video, to comment. If you're watching this on my YouTube, please subscribe. I always appreciate that. That helps to support the channel. However you feel called to connect with this video, but all of it helps to support the channel and to support the work that I'm doing, and it helps to get the messages to the people that need to hear them. So I appreciate it. Some of you guys are hardcore sharing my stuff all the time, and I just really appreciate it so much. Thank you for being here, and if you're new, welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope that you'll subscribe. I will see you guys soon with another video. Take care.